Okay, looks as though our recording has started. Thank you very much for joining me this morning. What I thought I'd do is, rather than just bore you with a whole lot of slides, which hopefully many of you have seen already, let's dive into the duck's guts of actually what this is and a brief overview. And then, in essence, what we'll do is we will then maybe open up some questions or see if anybody's got something they want to see in specific. But given this is the first dojo or first meeting, I suppose, and it is being recorded and will be public, I'll also give you a bit of a overview of what I'm thinking about when it comes to this sort of group going forward, and show you a bit of behind the scenes what I've already created and kind of how it will work. But before all that, let's talk about the way that Copilot is manifested in Microsoft 365. So if you're not aware, Microsoft 365 Copilot Chat is available in all tenants, no matter what their licensing is. So we're looking at a tenant here that has Microsoft 365 Copilot Chat. Now, when we look at one with a paid license, you'll notice there are some differences. So there's not the work and the web button up the top, and there are some missing applications over here on the left-hand side. Now, what this is going to allow us to do basically is to use the chat interface here on public or web data. So if I go in here and say, tell me how to configure conditional access, this is like any other prompt or any other AI engine that you see out there. Identical. Now, remember, this is the free version. The free version is built into the Microsoft environment, so it's going to give you the results, again, from the web because there's no license assigned here. The benefit of using Copilot Chat, which is free with Microsoft 365, is this little banner or little shield up here, which shows you have enterprise data protection. Now, what that means is if I go in here and add a file from my OneDrive, or I add a file from a device, then that file will be protected, won't be shared outside the tenant, won't be made public. Also, any prompts that I use, information that I do put in my prompts here, will not be shared publicly or used by Microsoft to train the model. So in essence, what you're getting is an enterprise protected version of consumer grade chat. So very much like ChatGPT, Anthropic, Gemini, but with that data protection, and also, some other integrations around the Microsoft 365 space. So we are getting that by default. So I would suggest to you that you can start using this today. Customers can start using it today without any hesitation, but you're really going to get the most value when you add a license to Microsoft 365 Copilot, as I've got here. So we're going to work in this environment going forward with the consideration that I do already have a license. Now, the first difference you'll notice up here is I get the work or web capability. So if I switch over to web, this is exactly like Copilot Chat. It's just going to use the web data rather than anything internal. But normally I would set it to the work option here, so it will go across the web and also my work data. Now, if you want to just have your work data, if you go up to the top right-hand corner, you'll see under the ellipse or the three dots, there's an option here for web content. So by default, your Microsoft 365 Copilot, the paid license, will also look across the web. But if you only want it to look across your tenant data, then you would unselect this option here, but it is on by default. So if I again go in here and go, tell me how to configure conditional access, let's say via PowerShell, for example, it's going to give me that chat. But remember, what it's going to do is going to generate an answer from my internal sources that I have access to as this user, as well as any web data that makes sense. So you'll see here that it's going to grab that information and then format it for us very nicely. All right. So you'll see here that you've got the information that it has internal resources that I've worked on, additional resources are cited here. They're listed down the bottom, and you'll see here there's actually conversations that I've had in Teams that are mentioned in this. So this is the benefit of the paid license of Microsoft 365 Copilot. In a nutshell, it is going to give you generated AI across your internal data as well as the web. Copilot Chat, the free version plus ChatGPT plus Anthropic plus those things will work across the web data by default. So this is the big benefit of adding a license. Now, the other thing to remember here is that any data that is searchable already, Copilot will just make that more readily available. So Copilot and AI doesn't necessarily expose any data in your organization, but it will make that information harder to locate. Easier to locate, beg your pardon. So for example, if I go to my OneDrive here, let's open OneDrive in a new tab here. If you want to run some tests, for example, what I would suggest that you do is you use the search option to go in and just do some searching for your data. So if I go in here and say payroll, maybe this is going to search all my corporate data and then tell me any results for payroll. So if you're concerned about the privacy of some of your data, my advice to you would be is do some searches, do some testing and some verification. Microsoft does provide tools to do this that are built in there before you do that. AI, Copilot will not magically make data that is not already accessible available. So again, keep that in mind. So we don't want to dwell too much on the standard stuff we see here that we get with Copilot, very common to most other chats. The big difference is, like I said, is the data sources. It will work across your information and your interactions. So it will work across your files you have access to in SharePoint, Teams. It will also work across your emails, plus the interactions you have with other people via the Microsoft Graph. So this is, again, the big benefit here. Now, you can add manually additional files. We'll talk about agents shortly. And you can also dictate into this if you want to do that. So a lot of people are moving to an interface where they're actually talking kind of to their agent these days. So that is all available to us. And of course, we've got our data protections still in place up there. And as mentioned, if you want to disable the web content and just work internally, you would then need to switch this option here. Now, working down the left-hand side here, you'll see that if you want to return to this page, you simply hit the top option there. And this little button up here will create a new chat for you. Now, remember the way that AI works, it kind of has a memory. It will remember the conversation, so I can keep asking it about question after question after question, or keep the context. If you want to start new context, then I would suggest start a new chat. So as a sort of a best practice is anytime you want to introduce a new conversation or a new thought or a new answer, start a new conversation so it won't kind of be polluted or influenced by previous chats. So just remember that. No drama, just create a new chat for a new topic. Just makes things a lot cleaner when you do work with that. All right. Now, you'll see over here that we've also got the capability to do search. So that is still there. I will admit that, unfortunately, Microsoft has made this Copilot page the new home page, and it has removed my favorite little waffle in the top left-hand corner. So when you want to navigate anywhere, they've removed this option from their front page, which I don't think was a particularly smart move. Hopefully it'll come back. What you need to do if you want your apps is to go down to the apps button here, and you'll find a list of all your apps, and you can find the full list here. Now, what I've done, as you see here, if you go to the app tile and select the ellipse, once you mouse over it, you'll see there's the ability to basically pin and unpin that. So let me find one that's not pinned. So here you'll see that I can pin it. When you pin it, it will appear over here on the left-hand side. So these are the common ones that I use. You'll see that you can unpin them, and you can also move them up, move them down in this menu. So a bit frustrating that we have to go in and do that kind of after the fact, but hopefully Microsoft will bring back the waffle. So I'm sure there's a, what do they call it, a survey or a request thing out there saying bring back the waffle. The next thing here we see are the chats. This is what we talked about. We type in the chats. The history of those are called conversations. They are listed down here. So here's our conversation history that we're talking about, conditional access. All right, so we can go in and continue that conversation. All right, you'll see if you select all conversations, that will give us, today, yesterday, a list of all the stuff. So it does, keep track of what it's working with there. So keep in mind there. That's, again, with chat. Now, when you've got a fully paid license, you can also start integrating what are known as agents. So these are scoped AI tools to a particular job. Now, the way that you add these is you go into all agents down here, and you're taken to the agent store, and you'll see there's a list of agents here. You can also search the store. This store is containing agents from Microsoft, but also from third parties. So my advice to you as the starting point, if you're just out of the gate or your customers are, is to add this prompt coach one as a starting point, which is this agent over here. So the idea with the prompt coach is to help you write better or have better conversations with your AI, right? So what we're going to do here is let's go in here and say, analyze this prompt. And I'm going to say, inverted commas, tell me more about conditional access. Okay, so what it's going to do is going to take that prompt and it's going to analyze that and say, look, does it have a goal? No, not really. Does it have context? No, not really. It's not going to help. And the source, not specified, and expectation. So it's a very poor prompt, right? Now, in essence, what you want in a prompt is a goal. What do you want? So what I should have said is probably something like, tell me more about conditional access and give me the step-by-step method to configure this. I should have given it the context, as in, I'm an IT professional. I want to configure this for my customer. The source could be looking at official Microsoft documentation rather than finding random sites on the website, on the internet. And the expectation, right? So maybe I want it formatted in bullet points, or maybe I want it formatted in a table, right? So keep this in mind, goal, context, source, expectations. So this is where the AI, getting the most out of the tool, is very different from using a search engine. Now, the prompt coach here does a lot of the hard work for us. It will tell me how to write a better prompt, right? So it's going to say in here, explain how conditional access, blah, 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 right? And it'll say why it made the changes. And it's going to help you write better prompts and get better results here, right? So let us, for example, copy that. And let us go back to our generic prompting up the top here and put that in. So remember, in essence, you get better results by putting more information in. What we've found with search engines is people are very brief. They'll put in conditional access and they hit the button and they get 1 million hits, right? You've got to give it more and more context, right? So you'll see here that we get, more detail, more information of what we want, step by step. So again, much better results here, right? So my advice to you is to go into the all agents and to add the prompt coach for every environment. Now, the next two I would suggest is one called the analyst and one called the researcher. Okay, so the idea here is that these agents, again, will perform far more detailed analysis and what's called thinking or reasoning. So there are two AI models, right, these days, I suppose, in generic terms. This one here, the prompting that you see in ChatGPT, Anthropic, those sort of thing, is a generated answer. It's a one-shot deal. You ask it a question, it generates an answer, bang, there it is, right? So it's a one-shot deal. The analyst, both the analyst and the researcher are what is known as reasoning models. So reasoning model will create kind of a, how do I do this? What are all the options? And then go out and explore that. And it's going to take, a little bit longer to be able to give you those results, but the information will be, far deeper. So just to show you this, if I take a spreadsheet here, let's just not tell you what it is, drag the spreadsheet in here. Now, again, you can use data from your own organization, which is available. And I just go in here and say, provide an analysis of this, right? So I'm going to be very vague. And what it's going to do, it's going to take that spreadsheet, because the analyst is aimed at working with numbers and data sets and spreadsheets. Now, you'll see what it does is it uses Python. It generates the Python to analyze that, does all of that automatically, nothing you need to do. But you'll see here that this is its thinking process. So we'll outline what its thinking process is, give you the information that says the file contains 117 records, blah, 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 overview, here's the structure of the data. So it's kind of telling me what's in the data I've given it. Now, remember, I could be a user who has no idea what the data set is or the columns or how it's arranged here. So it's going to give me all of that information quickly and easily. All right, so then I can go in here and I can go, what would you like me to do? So let's have a look here. Let's do this one here, maybe. Visualize user activity over the period by country and IP address. So let's put that in. Give it a moment. It will then go in and analyze the data that I've provided to it using those commands. Now, what I really like about this is that if you've ever used Power BI, so Power BI is kind of a dashboardy, similar kind of thing, a bit more work involved. This is going to allow you to take one or multiple spreadsheets and basically dump them in and then do analysis across, that whole set of information without having to have deep knowledge on that particular topic or that, kind of particular information if you want. So it's going to allow anybody to be able to go in there and do analysis across data sets without having to be a data analyst or being deeply ensconced in understanding the data. Now, the other thing you can do is you can basically drag and drop or target, a number of different data sources. So it could be spreadsheets, text files, databases, all sorts of things. So you'll see here, it's beginning to spit out this information. It's going to create a graph if it can, and you'll see here does that quite well, and I can then capture that information, right? So the idea here is the analyst really, really good for analyzing all sorts of data, and it's going to do all the Python, all the hard work for you at the back end. Now, the other one here that I suggested you add is called the researcher. Now, to me, the researcher is the bee's knees. It is the absolute best AI that's out on the market because remember, both the analyst and the researcher, once you have that Microsoft 365 Copilot full license, it's going to work across your data plus the web data. So you're going to be able to have this deep thinking, deep reasoning across all of your own corporate data, whereas public models are not going to be able to do that, right? So what I can do in here is I can go in here and say, please tell me the best practices for configuring conditional access. And again, what I can do, get my spelling right, I can put in things like for SMB. Now you watch when it, fix that. So you watch now when it runs, you'll see that what it does is initially it builds a plan. So what it's going to do, it's not going to generate a one-shot answer, give me a list, I'm done, what do you want me to do? You'll see here, it says, this is what I'm going to understand you want me to do. So I'm going to say, that's good with me. I'm going to just say, go ahead. Now the researcher will go through and you'll see it move through a number of different analysis phases. You'll see that it's doing research and you'll see it's pulling together sources. It's beginning to work out what it wants to do. It will discard sources which aren't relevant, which don't make sense. And it really is going to give you that very deep capability and answers on the information that you're after. So if you have a full license of Microsoft 365, go in and add the analyst and the researcher, go in and have a play with the researcher, ask it some deep and meaningful questions, and you'll be pretty surprised what it spits out here, right? So you'll see how it's doing a number of steps to get an answer. It's not just generating a one-shot deal based on its data and then giving you the answer. It's actually going in and thinking quite deeply about this. And again, it'll take a little bit longer to do all that, right? So if I go back to my analyst and then go back to the researcher, what I'll see here is the history that I've conducted with the researcher. So let's pick this one, maybe. What about that one? So all the history of my deep research is maintained here. You'll see here is the output result. So let me just show you the steps, kind of what it took. So look at all the steps that it took to create that result here, and then look at the value of the data that it has provided you here, and we can then use that and share that with others in our team. Now, what I've noticed recently is the researcher agent is now adding these little cards in. So you can obviously, copy this. You can also display it in the code or HTML. And there are a couple of options here. So it's very interesting that they're now beginning to tart this up, let's call it, and provide that. So it's really, really good for doing some significant deep analysis. I use this every day. There's no question. And remember the big benefit, once again, of both the researcher and the analyst versus a consumer grade tool is the fact it's going to work across your information as a priority as well as the web. And again, if you just want to work across your information, you would select the option there to turn off web content. If I wanted to add web content, I could select that option there. But again, this is extremely powerful in its ability, and it's also going to save you hours and hours and hours of getting a deep and meaningful answer, or really going deep. And I can keep going and asking more questions on that. Now, all of these agents are, like I said, available to you with a commercial license of Microsoft 365 Copilot. The good news is that you can actually go in and create your own agent. So I have an example here. So this is a Microsoft licensing agent that I created to answer questions about Microsoft licensing, because I could never find anybody at Microsoft who could answer questions about this. So if I go in here and go, tell me how to license Office from Microsoft 365 on let's be different. Let's go on a Mac device. Okay, oops, didn't spell that right. So what it's going to do is it's going to take its focused information that I've told it where to look. It's going to give me an answer just on that topic using those information sources, right? So it's worked out it was a Mac, right? So it's given me a pretty good answer there. Now, if I go in here and say, draw me a picture of a, dog playing pool, you'll see what it does is it's going to basically tell me, right, that this is not my job, right? So I've created a focused agent just on the topic that I want, and I can share this with others in my organization. So how do I do that? Well, you go down to the create an agent option over here. Hopefully, back to all agents maybe, go back to create an agent. There we go. And you'll see here, I can create an agent simply by answering a number of questions, and it will build it out for me by describing. I can also go in and manually configure it. So let me show you the licensing agent here, wherever it went to. Let's pick another one. Let's pick our Azure support one. You'll see there's the name, there's the description. The instructions in any AI agent are the most important component here that you need to get right. And here's my knowledge sources. So you'll see it's going across all the web sources, plus I have a folder inside my environment, inside my tenant that I have access to, that it's going to use to answer questions about Azure when this agent is used. And again, where it's available, can it do code interpretation, blah, blah, blah. You'll see that I have the ability to share that if I want. Anybody in my org, specific people, or just me. Again, I can take a copy of that and send that to other people. So if we go to the Azure technical support one here and say, how do I configure a Docker, I don't know, image, whatever it's called, using PowerShell, say, give it a bit of a challenge. Then have a bit of a think. Okay, now this is going to give me that answer, generate an answer, one-shot deal on the public web data that it finds, plus any relevant data that is in that folder that I created. So now it's going to give me the capability here. It's going to give me the PowerShell, all right, and take me through step by step what that does. So extremely powerful in that capability. So we can create those focused agents. Now that could be on a topic of your choice, mortgage broking. That could be a particular topic just inside your organization, maybe HR, maybe contracts, maybe customer details. And again, you could target that agent on exactly the knowledge you want. And think about it in this respect. if you have a corpus of knowledge in your environment that you use every day and you've accumulated on customers and whatnot, and you bring on a new employee, right? The amount of time they take to get up to speed is quite significant and, affects your profitability. But if I could create an agent that they could go in and use to answer simple questions about, what's this customer, where's their address, who's the main contact, when was the last time we did something with them, where's the setup file for their router or their printer, that's going to save that employee interrupting others, make them more productive, and give them more confidence that they can source the information themselves, right? So remember that the value of the information that you've got can be unlocked with search, but again, the AI is going to be able to use the generative capabilities of your own information plus the information provided by Microsoft inside the tenant to give you better answers and unleash that information that you've probably got sitting there that you're not taking advantage of. Now, when you do use the prompts in the Microsoft 365 Copilot, you'll see down the bottom here a number of additional icons. We can obviously get the results read out to us. Very handy if you want to maybe record that or go on the run. We give it a thumbs up, a thumbs down. So that's how we tell the AI service whether it's good or bad, it's done the right thing. So don't be afraid to use these. And we can also copy and paste that information. So we could copy and paste that into Word, OneNote, or whatever. But I think the real key here is to edit in Pages. So let's select that. And I go into editing Pages. What it's going to do is it's going to pop open a slider on the right hand side. And what it's done here is it's created a document that I can now share with people inside my organization. So if I go up to here, you'll see that I can share a page link, and this is in fact a loop component. So Copilot itself, when it stores information, or again in Pages, it stores it in loop components that make it easy to share in a manner that Loop supports. But if you want, you've also got the option to open it in Word, so you can export it to Word there if you want. Okay. Now, once we've done that, you'll see if there are other people in editing, we could go in and work on those files. But that is a good way for you to save that prompt or the results of that prompt and then share it with others. You'll see the page that I created is listed here. And if I select that, again, it will appear and I can go into that. Now, where that is all saved is if I go to loop.microsoft.com, oops, which I didn't spell right. Okay, bring that up. It'll need me to sign in because I'm in private mode here. So let me just sign in. I shouldn't have to put my password in. Okay, so you'll see what it's done here. These are my other loop pages, but I'm going to go into this one, my workspaces. This is where my general loop pages are, and here's the Docker one that we just did, right? So that's where it kind of ends up. And the good thing about this is I can go in here and, componentize this and share this in email, in files, in Teams, and whatever. And again, I've got the ability to lock the page so people can't accidentally override it. And I can also rename. You'll also see that Loop supports version histories in there. So we'll talk more about the integration with Loop, but the takeaway is to remember is that when you edit them in Pages, it will put them in a Loop workspace, which you have access to, and you can potentially share that with other people down the bottom, other people basically as well. Now you'll notice that Pages is listed here. Right, so again, those pages are listed if you want to go back to them once you create them, okay? Now, what most people are probably familiar with, I'll come back to notebooks, is the Create button. So this is where you can go in and you can typically create, a range of media. So it's going to be things like creating images, creating documents, and doing that sort of stuff. Now, again, this stuff is really, really good, I've found, as you see. So typically you go in, you create an image. Let's go in and just, go create an image. We put in what we want to do. This is based on a blog post I did this morning. You can select the style. So these are all the different styles. So let's make this one, a Neo, yay. You can also add your own branding kit. So if you want to have your logos, those sort of things in there, you can do that. And you can also define the width. So let's go in and create. take a moment. And then that'll give me that image. I can then download that. I can then use that in a blog post and save it, copy and paste it, put it in other locations. So that's how easy it is to create. Now, again, remember that it's going to use that information that's inside your own environment as well as on the web and do that securely and integrate it into, this experience without users having to pop in and out. Now, personally, I use the image generation in all the AIs, Anthropic, Gemini, ChatGPT. And again, it comes down to how well you prompt it. There's no question about that. But I have honestly found that the creation capability here with Copilot is superior. In my personal opinion, I'm not an artist, but it's given me exactly what I want in the style that I want very quickly and very easily. So I've really liked it. And again, it's probably because it's working with information inside my environment. So you get the idea here of how easy it is to, create this kind of material and then refer to it. You've got obviously buttons on the left-hand side here. You can add text overlay. You can save it to My Media. You can change a number and you can mark it up again if you want to do that. So all of that is built into the capabilities here. Now, if we go back to create for a moment, you'll see that I can also design a poster, right? And again, you can apply your branding kit here if you want. Now, this one here, the create a video, you'll see here probably that you can create a video by simply describing it, okay? So I've done a number of these. So so if I go to my blog, and you do a search for teaser. So I did a couple of these to do the Dojo teaser videos. These are all basically generated by the AI here or by Copilot here. Now, what I did for the first one is I just give it text and it spat out a video. The next one I gave it a little bit more specific. And then the third one, I actually used a PowerPoint. So you can start with a PowerPoint file and create a video for you based on that PowerPoint. Now, that works really, really well. So my advice for you is if you want to see the results of, examples of that, go to my blog here and do a search for teaser, and you'll see the three videos that I created there. So my first attempt at it here, right, very general overview, and then the other two. So if you want to see the results, it is pretty good. And that's using OpenAI's Sora style technology. We've also got the ability to create a form here. We can also define a banner, and we have a number of additional options here. We can do infographics, you can create a story, documents, presentations, all sorts of things here, and templates. So we go to look at the templates here, presentations, calendars, planners, flyers, and these will increase and add more capabilities basically over time. So if you haven't used this, this is very impressive and it works really, really well, I've found. So again, so the branding kit, Jason, is where you put in your logo, you put in your colors. So if you've got a corporate brand, it's like the CIOps brand kit is my logo, my color, my font, all of that consistency is then applied to anything that I go in here and create, right? So that's the concept behind that. Now, if we go down a bit further, this is the newest one, that's newest kit on the block. Again, you'll need a full license of Microsoft 365 to do this. This is a notebook. So this is borrowed, enhanced, copied, stolen from the concept of Google Notebook LMs. Now, the idea here is what you do is you aggregate common information together, and then it ends up in a notebook you can then apply AI. So let me give you my practical example. So my practical example is I run a regular podcast. Okay, now putting that together, creating that, putting the resources, recording the audio takes a lot of time, right? So what I've done here is I've assembled a notebook, and you'll see in the notebook I've got, for example, the show notes. So in here, I will put, links to all the news articles I'm going to talk about in this episode, right? Then I've got another one here, which is about, for example, common information that I tell people every month, this is my blog, this is the merch store, special thanks. This is kind of a bit of the script that I read out and the addition there, the episode, so I know what it is. So I assemble that all together. Now I can create a new page. And again, if you look at these, let's go to script, for example. You'll see this again is a loop page, right? So again, we can componentize that and share that with individual people. So if you haven't seen with Loop, you go up here and you go create a Loop component, and then we can quickly and easily share that. So once I've created that pages, what I can also do is I can add additional reference material here. Now that additional reference material can be files and stuff I've been working on recently. So here's that Docker page that I use with Copilot, or if I want to do a search, I can hit the little cloud icon, little OneDrive icon, and then I can navigate through all my files and folders inside my location and link any of those into my notebook. Now, remember, these are just linked. They don't copy anything in the notebook. They just reference it. Again, really, really handy because all of that data is inside my own tenant, right? Secure, locked down. I can't see information I haven't got access to. If I haven't got access to a file about, the CEO's payroll, it won't allow me to access that. So again, importantly, you need to lock down your data. But once it is, again, you can't add stuff you haven't got access to. Now, what I can do is if I pull this down, you'll see I can upload a one-off file from my machine, or I can provide an additional link here to a web source, right? So once I've got all this, I can go in here and I could say, for example, let's say I've done the show, I can go create a blog post on this episode that I can copy and paste into WordPress. Okay, so now it's going to use the AI, the Copilot, across just the information that I've indicated in the notebook. It's not going to go to the web. It's not going to go to anything that I haven't specified in the notebook. And again, you'll see here, does a pretty damn good job. Saves me a huge amount of time, right? So the idea here is, and if I then say, you know what, I want an email newsletter, I just select the option here and off it will go and recreate that content and make it an email that I can send out to people. And again, prompting is very, very important as to what you get out here. But I can tell you, this just saves me so much time now to be able to create that content, produce it, and ask questions about it quickly and easily. Now, what I can also do up here, you'll see, is I can actually tell Copilot how to respond. So I could say, Copilot, you are a audio producer of a radio show that yada, 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 does this, needs to do this, business formal style, do this, do that. So I can specify how I want it to respond. So you kind of think of it like an employee. You'll also see that it can create an audio summary for me as well. All right. And again, this is a little bit immature. So there isn't the option yet to export that. There isn't the option yet to change from the tone, the voices, but again, we expect that to basically change over time. But that audio summary is really handy if you need to maybe, you put all your customer data or project stuff together, give a summary, listen to it on the road, listen to it when you're out and about, right? So again, really, really powerful capability I found. And you can also go in here and add the content as well if you want. Now, again, this is found in notebooks. And what you do is you assemble a notebook, just select new notebook there. And for example, what I've been thinking of is why don't I create a notebook on, for example, device management. So I've taken all my best-selling research agent results on devices. I've included them as content inside this notebook. So now I can ask a question and go, what about give me the 10 steps to enable iOS device management. And again, that might be your HR onboarding, that could be your contracts, that could be questions. You could have a folder per customer. Right, so notebooks I found to be becoming more and more powerful, more and more something I'm using on a regular basis. And the reason is it allows me to assemble a set of information to run the AI just across that. That information can be a variety of sources, documents, and allows me to create my own pages to go in and achieve that, right? So once you have a license, go in, have a look, have a think about using notebooks. And again, one of the things to think about is maybe you want, you want a notebook on how to set up Microsoft 365. So you create a notebook, you put in all the resources, documents, links, all the best practices, and then you can go in and basically put all that information in and then run queries across that if you want. You'll see you can open it, favorite. Now, one of the things that's kind of missing at the moment is the ability to share this with other people. But again, we expect that to basically come in a matter of time. Remember, everything Microsoft does, it has to keep compliance, especially for the enterprise, in mind here, right? So again, the idea is you've got to give it a little bit of time for those sort of compliance questions to get sorted basically by Microsoft. So that's kind of the interface that customers will get, that you will get when you have a full license. My advice to you is obviously move beyond just simple prompting. Look at adding the agents, especially the analyst and the researcher. Think about creating your own agent, focus on a particular topic, and then don't forget to have a look at notebooks. I'm finding that a game changer more and more. And also look at creating. It does a really good job creating some of the images, and it does all of that in a nice environment without you having to switch out. Now, quickly, while we've got a little bit of time, I just want to talk about the concept of an agent, so a custom agent. So we saw the basic, let's call it a chat agent here, we use to create here. This is designed, this creation capability here inside the chat interface is targeted at end users. Right, tell me what you want me to be an AI across. I put that in and it pops out, right? It's designed to be a way for a user to create an agent to benefit them, like my licensing agent. Now, if you go into Copilot Studio, all right, so copilotstudio.microsoft.com, and you have a license, you will end up with an interface like this. Now, this allows you to create a custom agent. Now, a custom agent is an agent focused on a particular task across a particular set of knowledge. Now, if we go in here, you'll see there are a number of templates we can use. So if we go in here and pretend to create one, you'll see here is the templates we can use, and we can go in and create a new agent, and again, follow the bouncing ball through creating that, answering basic questions. But let me just show you two that I have here. Okay, so the first one I would suggest is Robert.agent. So what Robert.agent does is that it works across the information that is about Microsoft 365 on the web and also inside my own environment. Now, very importantly, I've provided a description, and this is the instructions here. This is what Robert.agent does and what it doesn't do, because what it does here, if you have a look at it, the agent will read all new emails delivered to a shared mailbox called Robert.agent, right? And then what it will do is it will reply to those with an answer on Microsoft Cloud technologies, right? So what I'm going to do is I'll post the email into the chat there if you want to send it an email. So to test it out, send a email to the email address robert.agent@ciaops365.com, which I posted into the chat there. And then basically in the body, not the subject, in the body, put in the Microsoft 365 Cloud question. So what it will do, it will then go and off and answer those. Now you'll see here that we've also now got the ability to select models. So Microsoft is going to allow us to target particular models that make available. We then basically give it some knowledge sources, right? So you'll see here it's going to work across a number of websites plus a number of PDF documents to get its answer. And one of the things I configured yesterday is this new concept of MCP. So rather than putting in a link to Microsoft Learn documents, what I'm able to do now is configure what's known as an MCP server, so that any of the responses that ask about Microsoft documentation will be handed off to this link and be dealt with and then given back to the agent. So think of it like outsourcing without having to create the agent. And then the idea here is I've also got a number of agents that this agent can call. So this is a boss agent, which can call sub-agents to do particular tasks around, the ASD blueprint for secure cloud, Microsoft licensing and news. And then I've also got the ability to control topics, which is, a curated path to the way the AI will answer. And then here you'll see I get the activity, right? So if I go in here and let's see if I can pick one I was playing with yesterday. So you can see here, it shows me that the question that I asked it went off and invoked the MCP server, and then it went off and did a search across Microsoft Docs, gave me the result, passed it back to this agent, and then I got the answer. So really, really powerful. Here's my analytics. So it'll show me, when it was asked, who would ask, what sources that it used. And finally, I get the ability to push it to different channels. So I can push it to websites, Teams, SharePoint are included for free. So the ability now to have this agent pushed to a SharePoint site has only been added recently. So this is, again, another really powerful feature to surface an agent or information inside SharePoint without everybody necessarily having to have a license. Now over here, we can go in and we can ask a question and test it out. But if we go in here and go down to my mailbox, you'll see here that, recently, this person here asked this question. So I'm sharing a OneDrive folder, blah, blah, blah. And if I go down to my sent items, you'll see that here is the answer that Robert.agent provided based on the instructions that I provided there. Okay, so when you guys use it, or if you guys want to use that, again, put your question inside. Oh, there's Derek. Hello, Derek. So Derek says, how does Microsoft 365 provide trust for Copilot interactions? All right, and then hopefully in a moment or two, we'll see that the agent will chew on that information and then send it back to Derek, and we'll be able to look at the results there. Again, it's not instantaneous. It'll take a moment or two. So if we go into the activity, let's just see if it's kicked that off yet. So there it is there. So that's Derek's interaction, which is still probably running. So there it is. New emails arrived, blah, blah, blah. It says waiting for user, which is a bit interesting. I don't know why it's done that. So let me do a quick troubleshoot here, just show how we do that. So for some reason, the link has had a problem. So I just need to verify that's reconnected. So here you see the MCP server has disconnected. So let me go to connect. Again, this only should happen the first time. So I was playing with this yesterday, as you shouldn't do on a demo before demo day. But again, I've just got to make sure that that connection is valid. There we go. And if we go back to Derek's request, hopefully I can retry here. Derek might need to send me a response again. But anyway, hopefully that's fixed the problem. So because I went out to do an MCP, that wasn't fully connected in this interface, which it is now. We should be good to go. But kind of why we go in and, test these sort of things. So that we know exactly what works and what doesn't, what the issues are. And remember, I just configured that MCP server yesterday, so hopefully that should give you an answer again. If you send that through, that should work again. So sorry about that, Derek. Try again. The vagrancies of live testing here. Okay, so Dave said he gets confused with if you want to use a tenant that are not licensed with Copilot as an agent, I will have to make that a block from the agent if the agent. I'm not quite sure what you're talking about, Dave. At the end of the day, for a user to get access to data inside a tenant with use for AI, they have to have a license. If you have an agent that uses web data and internal data, and you share that agent or that user, right? The only way that user can get access to internal data is if that agent is shared within Teams, okay? But if the user hasn't got a license and they go to their personal Copilot, any prompt here will only work on web data, okay? Now, if you want to create an agent, you create it in Copilot Studio, and then what you do is you publish it to Teams, and then we can use that agent in Teams. And again, the easiest way is for me to show you this. So hopefully we can spin this out. All right, so any agent creation requires a license. So the user who creates the license, creates the agent, in this case me, right? I need a license. Once I've created that, then I publish that in my environment, Copilot Studio, to Teams. Once I've published it to Teams, what I do inside my Teams here is see how it says make agent available in Microsoft 365 Copilot. And then what I can do here is I can go in, and that's not the best one. Let me go back to Patreon Copilot, which is the one I have published into Teams. You'll see when I publish into Teams here, right, you'll notice that this agent is published into Teams, and you'll see here I have the availability options, and here show to my teammates and shared users, or show to everybody in my org. So I need a license to create it. I need a license to target the data, but when I publish it to Teams, provided I've given the user access inside something like Teams, then they will have access to that agent across the data that the user has access to. Okay, so they'll have access to internal data, but only internal data they have access to without them needing a license. So the idea here is, here's my agent here. All right, so let's go into Patreon Copilot. All right, so I can go in here and ask it a question, but where I've published this into Teams, so let's go into Microsoft 365, and let's go into here, and got the answer, hopefully. Where is it? Come on. There we go. So if I go in here and go at Patreon Copilot, so I'm going to call the agent, right? The agent that I created and that I published, hopefully. Is the web just slow? What's going on here? Let's try again. Interface is just slow. Okay, so I'll call Patreon Copilot. This is called the agent. I'll go in here. Tell me how to configure conditional access. Conditional access using PowerShell to best practices for SMB. Okay, so what it's going to do is it's going to take that request, send it through this Patreon Copilot I've created, and then it's going to give me the answer back here. And I don't necessarily need to have a full Copilot license, and it will only work across the internal and the external information that I've defined as the agent creator here in Copilot Studio. You'll see here it does a pretty damn good job. Okay, because I've given it a lot of specific resources. So the idea is that with a single agent, right, with a single license of Microsoft 365 Copilot, you can create an agent which you publish into Teams to give every user in Teams AI access to internal and web data. That access only applies inside Teams. They cannot use Copilot, that capability, outside Teams, right? So my advice to people is to buy at least one license of Microsoft 365 Copilot, create an agent, an AI agent like I did with Copilot Studio, and then publish that agent into Teams, give all your users access to it, and then they will be able to use the agent that has been created across your configured data sources with security, compliance, and protection without the need to have a license. Okay? All right, so that's how it works. Let's have a look here. So Cam said we have non-licensed users use the agent, which is published in Teams, and it works like a charm. Agreed, 100%. And Dave said, yeah, when we add public websites as knowledge to an agent, it asks us to attest to owning the website. So the idea here is that the reason it asks you for that, whether it's an official source or not. And if you read what it says, so if we go in here and pick, this one here, for example, right? So this button here, official source. Now, if I select that, this is what it says, right? So it says answer grouping data, which has the tag authoritative as a header. So what it's going to say is that when the answer is generated by AI, you will see a tag that says authoritative, and it will tell the user that the answer from AI is from an authoritative source. Okay, so as an example here, the authoritative source, as if you all didn't realize it already, is my blog, right? So what I should do is go in here and say, this is the official source for information from CIA Ops, and when an answer is generated from my blog, it will basically have this tag in it to indicate that, Robert, that it is an official source as defined by me. All right, so that's all that basically does. All right, so it's kind of up to you as to whether you do that. Personally, I don't like doing that because I think it clutters up the answer, personally. But if you have a need or you have users who are concerned of AI hallucinating, then you would nominate your definitive sources, mark them as such. The AI will then answer the questions with that noted that they have come from authoritative sources that you have defined. All right, so hopefully that answers the question. So generally, the best practice is to, tag the ones which you know are authoritative, Microsoft, your own blog, your own website, or whatever, and not random ones like Reddit or, something that you're not 100% certain of, because really all it does is just mark them so the user appreciates that they have been defined by you as official trusted sources when they are linked in the answer there. So that's kind of what that does. So hopefully that answers that question. All right, well, I make it 10:30. We've been at this an hour. Before I switch the recording off and maybe throw it open to some general Q&A, let me give you a quick overview of what I'm sort of planning with this dojo going forward. So the idea is, as you see down here, there is a team already in place. Once you join the dojo, you'll be added to this team. You can look at the information, share information. You can look at, wiki documents. We're going to build this out, add more and more content. Okay, inside here are a number of agents that I have built already that can answer your questions, like this one here called @Senpai. Right, so if we go in here and go back to posts and go @Senpai, okay, and then I'll go in here and say, tell me how to create a chat agent in M365. Same sort of concept as Patreon Copilot. So you get access to all of that. We'll also run meetings in here. All the recordings will be the future recordings will also be in there. Okay, and all the content will be available. So we'll run this kind of meeting once a month or more, depending on what people want, and use that to provide answers during the periods in between and add more and more training content, answer questions. And again, it's a bit fluid as to exactly, how and what people want this to be, how it works. We'll work that out. But for the first month until the 1st of August, I'm willing to make it free for people to come and experience, get some understanding of what it is, how it works, and so on. And then basically there would be a charge involved in that. If you're interested in that, let me know what it is. Relatively small charge, but I need to obviously cover the costs of providing my time and doing all of these sort of things to create, those sort of capabilities. So that's really what, that's going to be all about. Okay. So the idea is that we'll make it free, we'll make it available, share the information for a month. You'll be added to a team here, but then going forward, there will be a subscription that will be charged. And again, the information then will go behind that kind of paywall. And the idea is the dojo is designed solely on AI, and it's not just Microsoft AI. it'll be Anthropic, Gemini. So if you go into other here, you'll see that I'm posting about, other AIs out there, the integrations with Copilot. So the focus will be obviously on Microsoft 365 Copilot, how to get the most out of it, how to integrate it into your business. But I'm not excluding or not going to prevent discussions on other AIs, but the focus is on how to do it inside the Microsoft 365 environment. So there's so much excitement here. There's so many topics. There's so many capabilities around this and opportunities. I want to make those available to everybody and get the people involved. So again, if you're interested, hit me up after this. And again, it will be free until the 1st of August to give you a feel if you are interested. And I would encourage you not to just join up just in case. We really want people to go in there and contribute, to ask questions, to be part of a community, to build out tutorials, to come up and input your own prompts. Like, I found this prompt to work really well. I found that prompt to work really well, and build that knowledge base out. So that's kind of the thinking going forward. If you're interested, stay tuned. But again, I'll prepare to offer it free and just to see how it works, how people are interested. Because again, we've covered, basically a very, very small amount of what we could cover today. And the idea here is, as I can see in the chat, there's already hundreds and hundreds of thousands, millions, trillions of questions about how do I do this, how do I do that. Specifically, we're not going to be able to cover that in today's session, right? So if you want that sort of stuff answered, get into the community, get into ask questions. We can do all that, and we can do it in further dojos going forward. And again, it's great to see the interest there, but we do have limited time, and I want to be respectful of your time. So again, what I will do now is I will, again, stop sharing here, and I will finish off the recording by saying thank you very much for attending. This recording will go up on YouTube. It will be available public if you want to have a look at it, but future dojos information will only be available to those in the team and subscribers going forward. So again, thank you very much for watching. If you do have any questions, let me know down the track. And this is just, again, a very, very small list of information that's provided. Like I said, I've had some issues, as you saw there, with the MCP server. I'll sort that out, but we only added that recently. Very, very exciting time. So again, thank you very much for attending, and I'll stop the recording.